Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neuro-linguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions, both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV therapy and coaching services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoach.drdanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our fifth episode of season 19, a very special guest and author and living with stage 4 cancer, Cindi Buckley. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Cindi, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Cindi, Cindi Buckley. I'm an author of the book Love Awakens You. This book helps you to recognize and understand the difference between love and fear, because fear is very pervasive in our lives, and we are not aware of how intertwined it is with what we think is happiness, but it really isn't. Um, and I have had a variety of medical issues. As Dr. Dan had mentioned, I have stage 4 cancer, which I've had for and still have for 25 years. I have an autoimmune disorder called morphia, which limits my mobility. I'm not in a wheelchair yet, folks. I'm still making sure I'm active and keep going. Um, those are the two major things. I've had a variety of surgeries. I've also had ovarian cancer as well. That seems to be under control. I have another year before I get to go once a year to the gynecologist.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Cindi, for being a part of this podcast. And I know that your journey is somewhat extremely challenging. And I think this is what we're here for, to be able to inspire many others, many of the listeners, that stage 4 is not, it's not terminal anymore. With the proper treatment, you could prolong your life and live a happy life. So obviously, if you had cancer for 25 years, from stage 1, it jumped quickly to stage 4, or there was a long, long time before that happened?
I actually found out about it when it was stage 4.
Oh, okay. So what symptoms did you have that actually prompted you to be able to go and get tested?
Well, back in my early 40s, I went to the digestive doctor and had I call it an upper GA, but it's called upper GI, but it's called something different now. I can't remember what it's called now. And he'd found a lesion near my pancreas, but nobody did anything about it.
Mhm.
He said, "You have a lesion." And that's okay. I didn't really understand that lesion meant tumor at that time, by the way. So a number of years passed, and all of a sudden I started having pains in my right side. And luckily, I had a nurse practitioner who took me seriously and immediately sent me for a CT scan. As soon as that came back, she said, "We need to send you for an MRI." They sent me for an MRI, and she called to tell me that I had liver cancer. I do not have liver cancer. I have what's called neuroendocrine carcinoma. It's an uncommon type of cancer. And then the process was to go and have chemoembolization, which is where they put the cut into your groin and they put the chemo beads directly into my liver, because the cancer is in my liver.
Okay.
My whole liver, but it's in my liver. Um, and that seemed to help. And that was 10 years ago. So every 6 months, I go for an MRI and I see my oncologist to check, and everything has been stable for 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
Um, I know the chemoembolization made a big difference, but I think my attitude made a bigger difference. I think that's what keeps me reasonably healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Attitude is everything. But you mentioned the name of the cancer, but if it's endocrinology, isn't it based in the thyroid? Because endocrine is mostly the thyroid production, isn't it?
It is, but this is actually related to the pancreas.
So why does it attack the liver?
It's just where it metastasized to in me. This type of cancer can
Um,
metastasize majority of the time to two places, the liver or the bone. And
okay.
I'm going to say this, and I am incredibly grateful it
It's not the
chose the
bone.
liver and not the bone. The bone would be quite
Absolutely.
painful, and the bone doesn't regenerate like the liver does.
That is so true. Absolutely. And so when it did metastasize into the liver, did the treatment that you mentioned earlier, did it really kind of like put into remission, or there was like still a lot of activity that was, bringing to terminal?
Well, what the doctor said is it's unlikely it will ever go into remission. The only way it can go into remission is if the tumors calcify. I've
Okay,
had one or two calcify so far, but I got a lot. So, take the wins when you get them.
absolutely.
Um, um, it just keeps me stable. As he says, he thinks it's working on a microscopic level.
Okay.
The tumors haven't really grown, the ones that they measure regularly, the larger ones, and they don't see any new ones coming. So that's been 10 years.
Well, I know, like, I think Steve Jobs did have pancreatic cancer.
He
Uh,
did.
that
He
can,
had the same thing, neuroendocrine
okay,
carcinoma.
he did. He didn't, I mean, he passed at 54, I think, or how old was he? So it seems like even though you have the same thing, but it's not affecting you the same way.
Well, he did some unusual therapies.
Okay,
He went down to Mexico and chose to do the high dose vitamin C and to eat only a fruit, vegetables.
okay.
Won't be very, that will help for some types of cancer. It would not help for this type of cancer. This type of cancer can be very aggressive or it could be very slow growing. I believe I have the slow growing kind,
Mhm.
which, it could change at any time. If it does, I'll deal with it. I don't know if he had the aggressive kind or not, but he did choose to do some alternative therapies, which basically didn't work.
But cancer usually thrive in sugar. If you suffocate the cancer by not having any sugar in your diet, shouldn't that work?
Not in this case, not in my case.
Okay, because even him, if you did say that he did vegetable and I would say
Fruits.
fruit, but fruit does have natural sugar. So he just continued feeding the cancer with how it thrive inside the body. So it should have like, completely eradicated sugar intake, and that probably would have suffocated it.
Well, it'll help slow it down. This type of cancer, let me just explain how it works. You get each tumor is its own self-replicating tumor.
Hmm.
So you get one tumor, it replicates to another, the other tumor replicates to another. So, and it just keeps going.
Yes.
Not all cancers are like that. Some cancers work on hormones, or some work from different cells that are in the body. This builds a tumor, and then that tumor builds more tumors. So it's self-replicating. So
It didn't affect, so the condition of your pancreas right now, and the pancreas, we know it does secrete insulin to be able to level the blood sugar in the body. So is it not doing this anymore? So do you still have to do?
my pancreas is fine. This actually is the lesion, and they can't determine that this is the source, but the lesion that I have is actually just outside of the pancreas, and I'm going to say this wrong, but I'm going to say it, the duodenum,
Okay,
do do
duodenum, yeah.
duodenum. Did I say it right? Okay, it's kind of like in between the pancreas and the duodenum, and so there's a special test that can be done, a scan. It's called an octrio scan.
Okay,
It's nuclear medicine
okay,
that
wow,
tests for neuroendocrine carcinoma, which I've had twice, which came up negative. But
wow.
when they did the liver biopsies, he
Mm,
jabbed me 5 times. It's almost healed 10 years later.
yeah.
Um, that's when they found out what type of cancer I have, because the octrio scan came back negative. I've had a PET scan,
Okay.
nuclear medicine again, at twice, and both times it said, well, you're 95% not cancerous.
So
So this is how buried this type of
yes.
cancer is. It's not overt in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, I could imagine, yeah. And is it it was very hard to access to be able to do the proper biopsy, or they have to poke many times to be able to get a sample?
They had to poke me 5 times in
Ouch.
the liver through the rib cage to get the samples. He took 5 samples and he got them.
Okay, he did get him. Okay, I see. So if you could tell our listeners, and this is the purpose of this podcast, what have you been doing during the 25 years where most people will feel extremely depressed waiting the impending death date? For you, what did you do to be able to overcome? And you said attitude is everything. Um, Let our listeners know. I mean, because obviously a lot of people would love to know how can someone with stage 4 cancer be still able to thrive and write books, etc.
Well, I want to start with saying that when I first got the diagnosis, I fell apart.
Okay.
You're human, you have emotions. I literally fell apart. I cried for a month and I actually said, "What do I do? How do I live my life? I'm going to die soon." And I am very connected with my guides. And I said to my guides, "What do I do?" And they said, "Live your life. Live your life." So after a month of crying off and on, and not just, I mean, bawling,
Oh, yes.
um, I got really physically and emotionally tired. I just said, "You know what? I can't do this anymore. This is hard work. I'm tired all the time. I feel bad all the time, and I really don't like it." So I said, "Okay, let's pick myself up by my bootstraps and let me get moving." Well, in the meantime, prior to that, I had become a student of A Course in Miracles, which is all about forgiveness, not in the type of forgiveness that the world talks about. This is a type of forgiveness where you truly understand that no one has done anything wrong. Everyone is innocent.
Okay.
Does it mean you don't
Guilty.
have challenges to
Okay.
do, to go through? Yes, you will. And yes, you're going to meet people you don't like and still don't like. You just forgive when you have that. So I sped up the forgiveness and I just said, "I want to live my life," because that's what they told me to do. And I said, "I really should listen to it. It's a good idea."
Mhm.
So I said, "Okay." And it took about a year, admittedly, before I stopped thinking about it all the time. And time fades a little bit as you start to live your life and you start to get out more and realize I don't have to hibernate. I don't have to suffer with sadness. Why should I? I don't want to.
That's
It it doesn't serve any purpose other than to make me feel bad and to feed my ego. And I guess what? Don't want to feed my ego. I want to feed me.
yes. That's so true. Now, when you said that you were physically tired, was it because of being drained by the feeling of like this impending death, or was it because of the treatment that you were having? Because again, both of them, if they're in sync, yes, anyone who's doing chemotherapy will feel exhausted. So what was it? Was it just the fact of constantly crying for a month that made you exhausted, or because of going through the treatment?
No, the first one, constantly crying for a month, made me exhausted.
Okay.
It takes more energy to be sad than it does to be happy.
You are
A
absolutely right.
whole lot more energy. It's physically, emotionally, mentally draining to be
Agree.
sad, to live within that vicious cycle of repeating bad things to yourself. When you're happy, you've got all the energy you need and it's not exhausting.
No, actually, it propels more to help others becoming happy, especially
Yes.
case here. I mean, like I'm sure that a lot of people have their own challenges with their health, not necessarily related to cancer or any of those sort, but it could be also mental health. So the mental health also impacts how people feel about themselves, how people feel about their environment, etc. So that can be also draining.
Yes, it can. Mental health can be quite serious.
Mhm.
But with all of these things that we're talking about, you have to start somewhere. You literally have to say something or think something that says, I can't do this anymore. Something isn't right.
Mhm.
I want to make a change. You just simply start with a thought like that, and guess what? Help will show up. Whether it be seen or unseen, help will come. Always. I don't say always very often, but I say always. Now, the next key is
Mhm.
you have to learn to accept that help because not everyone wants help and not everyone wants someone else to see what they're going through. They prefer to hide it. Not doing yourself any good, by the way, people. So, yeah, you have to ask, you have to make that step to open the doorway.
Absolutely. But no, I'm sure that a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, Cindy, they're all going to say, well, easier said than done. So
True.
easier. So yeah, we can preach that this is the thought that should go through your mind. But is there any exercise beside meditation, beside going out and breathing fresh air that can actually make them feel or make them forget? Because you mentioned something earlier, which kind of like triggered my mind. You said that eventually with time, you start not forgetting but kind of like moving on. But when you constantly go see the doctors, isn't that a reminder over and over
Yes.
again? So how can you forget? Because the treatment in itself brings you back to the misery that you're in or to the sickness that you're going through. So how is that time does not really help in forgetting because you're constantly facing oncologists, other doctors telling you, oh, now you have this problem, that problem. So what are the strategy that you suggest?
Well, I have a saying that I like to say for people to say. That first is to say, I am always safe and protected.
Okay.
Say that. You don't have to believe it, by the way. You have to say it, though. You
Okay.
don't have to believe it, but you have to say it. Start with that. The other thing you have to do is you have to realize that you're not alone. You are not alone. There is help out there. And to start to realize, guess what? Just about everybody's only thinking of themselves. They aren't thinking about you.
Mhm.
You know, if you have, and don't take things personally.
That's very important.
Very important. Because guess what? It's not about you. It's only about you if something they say or do upsets you, then you have an issue somewhere that you need to clear. I call that the mirror effect.
Mhm. Now, do you feel that, okay, it's not about them, but the reality is that why me? Why am I supposed to be able to deal with cancer? I eat healthy. I exercise every day. I take care of myself mentally, spiritually, physically, and all that. Why do I have to go through this? Now, I know that we all are born with cancer cells that are dormant in our body. The proof is look at um, I think it's St. Jude Hospital. Look at how many kids are born with cancer. That means that when they were born, the cancer got alive with them, with the baby. So we have them inside us. Now, lifestyle, eating habits, lack of exercise, then that triggers the cancer cells to awaken. So some people will say, well, I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising. Why did it awaken with me?
I actually had that thought when I got first diagnosed. I literally thought that, why me?
Mhm.
And then I realized I had to take a step back and I said, you know what? And I'm going to go a little far out with this. We are here. We all have lessons to learn.
Purpose.
How do you know that my getting cancer or someone else getting cancer isn't going to help other people?
Mhm.
Maybe that's what the purpose of it is. Maybe it's suppose you have a child that has cancer and unfortunately the treatments didn't work. How do you know the parents don't create an organization or a society to help other parents?
That's a good point. You're right.
We all have lessons that we have to learn,
Mhm.
and maybe what we go through helps other people. If you continue to look at it like that, or even start to say, Yeah, I have stage 4 cancer. It could change anytime. I could die in a month. Who knows? But what? So what? What if I'm here to actually help inspire people?
True. But then does it go with the same theory that people calling to God when thing goes bad and when everything is great, they don't pray to God? Is it the same thing that it needs something drastic to happen for us to start taking action?
Well, unfortunately, that's human nature.
Correct.
We're not always proactive.
Only reactive, unfortunately.
But I got to tell you, the more proactive you are, the easier your life is. It flows with ease and grace. It really is wonderful. It just
Then
it is.
mentally, Cindy, it can actually play and bite you in the butt. Because if you're trying to be proactive too much, you're trying to anticipate a future that you have no control over.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So then it becomes OCD. Then you're becoming obsessive, and then you just always fear taking a step because you're proactively thinking that the step that you're taking may not render the result that you're expecting.
That's true. I have a section in my book where I call answers,
Okay.
and one of the answers is expectations. And the
Okay.
first line is expectations kills inspiration.
True. Absolutely. You're right.
So, and it takes a lot of practice. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but it takes a lot of practice to let expectations go. And when you do, you will be surprised at what will happen.
Mm.
It'll be better than you could possibly imagine
That's so true.
or expect.
Mhm.
It really is. I mean, I've this year has been an absolutely horrible year for me. I was sick early on. I've fallen very badly a couple times. I cut my finger, I had to go to the emergency room. I mean, it's just been a terrible year, but guess what?
You're
Whew,
still here.
I'm through it.
Yes.
I'm gonna go on.
But
And
do you think that nowadays a lot of spiritual gurus always tell people to live mindfully, but living mindfully, doesn't it kill proactivity? Because if you're mindful, you live in the moment. There's no time for you to be able to start living into the future and start changing the course of your existence based on something that you may expect happening. So let's say, for example, those who are dealing with cancer, the first thing that comes to their mind is, I need to prepare my legacy. I need to prepare putting all my investment and finding my beneficiaries in case I crack or until or whatever happens. So do you think that now people are start living with caution because we don't know? Terminal 4, I mean, stage 4 is terminal cancer to a certain extent, depending exactly the gravity of or how fast it moves. So don't people start living death versus living life?
um, I don't know. I'm not sure I like the term mindfulness. I think the original intent was to get people to think about what they say and do.
Okay.
I don't think people take the pause or deep breath that they should. Um, I guess I'm not a fan of the word, to be honest. Um, I just I think it causes you not to think about how to be happy.
Okay.
Because if you're being mindful, sometimes you're thinking about other people more than you are thinking about yourself. Not that that's a bad thing, but always you first,
Mhm.
not in the selfish ego sense, but in the intuition love sense. There's a
So
difference.
absolutely, you're right. But then when you start taking care of people who are dealing with cancer, either stage 4, then this is a selfless act because you're there to be able to make sure that whatever life they're living is a quality life. So did you have anyone that was able to be there to be able to help you going to the doctors or when you were sick or when you were falling down, whatever it is? Was there someone that was there for you?
My husband was sort of here.
Okay.
And my sister-in-law came up for the first 2, 3 weeks after I had the chemoembolization because what happens is you go through flu-like symptoms, which are quite severe
Mm.
as the cells are dying off and the
Yes.
liver can't really process all of it. I eventually had to have my
I read
gallbladder removed. So, yeah. So it was nice. It was helpful. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
So, so in your book, do you talk about your cancer, or is
I
it?
don't actually. I focus on the history section is the only section that uses the word I, and it is based on how the inspirational sayings and how my spiritual journey happened.
I see.
The second book coming out in about 3 months does have all my physical issues that I've had.
Is it a memoir?
Not a memoir. No, this book is my story is inspirational and hopeful. And yes, I really do appreciate that I can share it and help people. But I started thinking, how can I help people learn to do these things on their own? How can they learn to lift themselves up?
Mhm.
So that's what the book is about. It's like an onion. It releases a whole layer of fear. You don't have to do any affirmations. You don't have to um, do any journaling. You do not have to do any self-help techniques or protocols. You simply read the book. That's it. That's all you have to do. Short little book, easy reading, but very effective and powerful.
So where can people find your book, Cindi?
They can find the book on Amazon, and its title is Love Awakens You.
Okay, and the second book will come out, you said, in March?
About 3 months, yeah. After the first of the year, I will be signing up with the self-publishing company. This book is Love Awakens You. The next one is Love Saves You.
So it's gonna be a trilogy?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I got
So
one, I got two, and the third book, I'm actually going to be writing a children's book based on love, but it will be a magical journey of discovery.
so is the next book a prequel or sequel of this one?
Sequel.
A sequel, okay. Because sometimes if you look at the prequel sequel of Star Wars, they started with 4, 5, 6, and they went to 1, 2, 3. The
No, the book Love Awakens You gently opens you up. It's the way the words put together that actually unlocks parts of you.
I see.
It does do that. And then Love Saves You goes way more in depth, and it goes deeper and peels more layers of that onion off. And I have 3 simple little exercises and some helpful tips as well. The exercises are very simple. They take you no more than a minute or 2. And then you read the book, and then you do the exercises again to see if your answers change.
Beautiful. Well, Cindi, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible stories. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 19 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. What cancer cannot do to you on a spiritual level is profound. Cancer, in its essence, is severely restricted. It cannot cripple love, shatter hope, corrode faith, erode peace, destroy confidence, kill friendship, shut up memories, silence courage, or quench the spirit. Cancer may alter your life, often for the better. Through the experiences, you gain insight into what truly matters, how to prioritize, and the value of not wasting precious time. There's a deeper understanding of expressing genuine feeling towards others. For those recently diagnosed, it is crucial to find your own coping mechanism in facing this new reality. The journey helps you discover your true self and inner strength. Now, while this may be unconventional, sharing experiences with others undergoing similar challenges can be empowering. Amid the ups and downs, you'll develop effective strategies to combat this formidable disease and emerge victorious. Remember, cancer may be a diagnosis, but it does not define who you are. My name is Dr. Dan Amzallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.